Good morning, queens and kings. Miss Purple is in the building. I just wanted to come on and say good morning and to just see how everyone is doing. I'm sorry, guys. I'm looking straggly. Yes, guys, it's just, I know. I'm just sitting here just thinking and thinking. I think I've been thinking a little too hard. I hope everybody is doing okay because, guys, I don't know. I just don't know what to say. I don't know. I've been trying to, I guess we just can't, I don't know. I just can't put my finger on things, guys. I guess right now I just been in one of those sad modes. Sorry, my shirt look kind of big, guys. Like I told you, I'm on this journey to lose some more weight. And I'm doing it, guys. I'm doing it. I just want to thank God each and every morning. I praise God. Like I tell people, guys, we got to stay prayed up. I pray when I wake up. I pray when I eat breakfast, or drink breakfast, rather. I pray when I sit in there just thinking about the world and the way things are going. I pray when I step out my front door to check my mail. I pray when I sit in there talking to my mom, because I'm thankful for my mom still being here with me. Because there's a lot of people whose mother is not with them. I pray for my sister. I pray for the world. I pray for everybody in the world. I pray all through the day. I stay praying. I don't just pray when I wake up, and I don't just pray when I go to bed. I stay praying every day, all day. Because I look at it like this here. There are some prayers and there are some prayer wars. And prayer wars are those that pray all day, every day, because there are some people out here who don't know how to pray. There are some people out here who pray only when it's convenient for them to pray. There are some people out here who pray when they're in a rut. And there are some people who tell you they don't pray, but don't realize when things are not going in their favor, they pray. Especially when they in harm's way. Oh, God, please don't let this happen. Or please don't let them take this from me. That's when they pray. Do you know when you say that, you're praying? But guys, for me, I have to pray every day, all day. That's just the type of person I am. That's the type of person that I've been taught to be. Because I watch my mom. I watch one of the strongest persons in my life. I watch how my mom did things. That what makes me so strong, and that what makes me a prayer warrior. When somebody asks me, Miss Purple, can you pray for me on this? That's why I do it. Because my mom did it. When I seen her, when somebody came to my mama and said, Miss Missy Lane, can you pray for me about this? My mama would get that Bible. She'll go in that room and she'll sit down and she start praying. And I'd be wondering, why she do that? Now I see why she did it. And she will pray for that person. And then we'd be out somewhere sometime and she just talked to strangers, because my mama was a lovable person. Talk to anybody. And when she prayed for them, she did say, ma'am, can you pray for me? And my mama just would go home and she'll ask them their name, and she'll go home and she'll put their name on a piece of paper and she'll pull that paper out when she get home and she pray for them. And you know what? I do the same thing when I'm out. And sometimes I stand and I pray with them right there in the air. I used to be, when I used to go to work all the time and I used to pray for people, people would come back and say, ma'am, I want to thank you. I had people come to me sometime and tell me, ma'am, you don't even know, yesterday I wanted to do this to myself, and I was in this kind of place, and when you pray with me or you talk to me, you don't know how you saved me. And you know what? I don't look at it as I saved somebody. I look at it as I was doing my job. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes God put us in a place where he know we're needed. Sometimes when you sit down and you look at a person that's homeless and you be like, I don't want to sit next to that person because he stinks, or I don't want to sit down to that person because he ain't got nothing. Let me tell you something. You ain't never know when you're sitting next to an angel. I've never turned a person away from me that's homeless. I don't care if he stink or not. I don't say nothing. I just sit there and if they don't talk to me, guess what? I make the first conversation. I start the conversation. Because a lot of times I be want to know how they get there. How did they get to where they are, to where they're at now? And you'll be amazed at where they came from to where they at now. There's a lot of homeless people that I have sat down and talked to. And they had corporate jobs, own their own companies, only to slip up and let one drug take them down. Or they lost a child, or they lost a wife, and they didn't want to go on. And we sit here and we mock people, but we don't know the struggle that took them there. But we get out here and we laugh at them and ooh, look at they on drugs. But you don't even know what made them get on those drugs. Because it ain't just they got on drugs. It's something made them get there. Just like when I was drinking alcohol. I wasn't just drinking alcohol. Something was making me drink that alcohol. But no one ever asked me, but my mom, why do I drink alcohol all the time? Only my mother asked me, why are you drinking alcohol all the time? What makes you drink? Why do you drink, Lavender? Why do you sit there and you get drunk? I said, Mama, I drink because it makes me happy. Because guys, inside, I was tore down, I was crying, I was calling for help, but it's like nobody heard me. Not knowing, I know God was listening. He heard me. He was listening to my cries. Whether I went home and put on a gospel song, or whether I was crying in the closet, or whether I was at home reading my Bible, or whether I was at home crying all the night, listening to love songs and letting the tears flow down, or whether I was reading a poem or writing a poem, or whether I was calling out to Jesus, or whether I was calling someone, talking to them, but they weren't listening to the words that were coming out of my mouth, or the way I was saying them, or how I was reaching out, or how I was trying to find love, trying to find love in the wrong way. God was always there for me, but I didn't think he was. You understand what I'm saying? I had got to the brink one day, guys, I'm not gonna lie. I called my daughters and I called my daughters on the phone. Well, I didn't call them, I texted them. I texted each one of my daughters and I texted my son. I said, I love you guys. I just want to say I love y'all. I text my daughter and my two daughters, Angel and Angelica, and I text my son, Antoine. And I just want to say, Mama, love y'all. I said, I love y'all. I love you very much, Angel. And I told my daughter, I love you very much, Angelica. And I told my son, I love you very much, Antoine. My children thought I wanted to kill myself. At the time, I was messing with this young man. And I knew that young man wasn't no good for me. I was staying in a beautiful home, had a nice job, making very good money. But he wasn't doing anything in my house. He was just taking up space. Sex wasn't good. Like I said, it really wasn't even about that. He was just taking up space. And I wasn't in love with him. I didn't love him. I just didn't want to be alone. And I sat there in my living room one day. I was sitting on my couch. I had a section. I was sitting in the middle of my couch, and I had my curtains open. I was looking out on the patio, and I cried all that day. My eyes were bloodshot red when I text my kids that, and they were all out. They was out with their friends, and when they came home that day, after I texted them, they came home that day. And my daughter said, "Mama, what's wrong?" I said, "Nothing." But I was crying. I was still crying. And tears was rolling down my face. I had the gospel music on. I had Yolanda Adams on. I never forget. The battle is not yours. I had that CD on. I had that record playing over and over and over. And I was wrapped up in a blanket, and I was sitting on the couch, and I was crying, 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 and I was praising God, and I was crying, and those tears wouldn't stop flowing, and they just kept coming down, and they just kept flowing, and I just kept telling God inside, because I didn't want to say it outside, "I'm yours when you're ready for me." Because I felt the pressure of the world around me. I said, "God, I don't know if I can continue going on with all this pressure around me." Because at the time, my youngest daughter was just putting me through hell. She was just doing things, and everybody was telling me, "Let her go." And I kept telling them, "I can't, because this is my child. I cannot just cut her loose." She was doing things. She was just getting into all kind of trouble. She was just out there wilding, but I couldn't give up on her. Then, like I said, I was heavily drinking alcohol. I was partying so much. I was going to work. Every day I go to work. The only way I could go to work, I was drinking it. I had to drink to go to work, because that's the only way I can go to work happy, make myself happy. And I was disguising myself with alcohol. And I'm not gonna lie, guys, it was hard for me. It was so hard for me. And I was telling myself, why are you pretending? You go to work, you be around these people, you pretend to be so happy, and you're not happy in life. But I was sitting on that couch. At that time, it didn't matter. My daughter said, "Mama, are you okay?" She called my mom, and she told my mom, "Mama, something wrong with Mama. She's just sitting here on the couch." And my son started crying, and he said, "Mama, you okay?" Because my son is my only son, and he was like, "I love you, Mama. What's wrong?" I wouldn't say nothing to my children. I wouldn't say nothing to my man at the time. I just sat there, and I was just crying, because I was looking at this young man. I'm like, to me, sad, just sad young man. He had like he didn't want nothing. Everything I had in my house, I had paid for. Everything I had was mine. I'm like, this young man don't want anything. I was trying to, be there, seeing if he was gonna change and want something in life. To me, he didn't want anything. I was trying to just, make my children understand life is not handed down to you to want something nice. This here is what I've accomplished. You have to want to have this in life. So you got to work hard to get what you want, because everything is not given to you. We have to work hard. We have to work twice as hard as other people. We're not handed down stuff. You know what I'm saying? So I try to teach them the value of life. I have to teach them the value of money. And guys, like I said, I had a pretty good life. I'm not gonna lie. And as I sat there on that couch, because I would go get me a half a gallon of Seagram's gin or vodka, or either I go get me a bottle of Crown Royal, a big bottle of Crown Royal, or my favorite was Jack Daniels. And I promise you, I had a bottle of one of them every day in my house. Every day. If I ran out, I go get another one, because that's just how I drank. I drank every day. And I just sat there that day on that couch, and my daughter, they called the paramedics. The paramedics came. Well, the police came first. And when the police came, they called the paramedics. The paramedics came, they took my blood pressure. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it that day. When that paramedics checked my blood pressure. And he said, ma'am, your blood pressure is too high. My blood pressure was 230 over 210. I never forget it that day. And he said, we're going to escort you to the hospital. I said, I don't want to go to the hospital. He said, man, we got to take you to the hospital. I said, I don't want to go to the hospital. So they called their captain, because their captain came. The police called the captain, and the captain came to my house. He said, ma'am, he said, we gotta take you to the hospital because your blood pressure is too high. He said, your blood pressure is 230 over 210. I said, I don't care. I said, my blood pressure be dead high every day. He said, ma'am, your eyes are bloodshot red. He said, we have to take you to the hospital. He said, if you don't want to consent it, we will have to take you to a mental institution to have you evaluated. I said, no, I'm not going anywhere. I said, you all came in my house and disrupted me. I didn't call you all. I said, I know my children call you all. I said, but I'm okay. I said, right now, I just need for you all to remove yourselves from my home. I said, because right now, you all are upsetting me more, and my blood pressure is going up. I said, I need you guys to leave. So the chief said, I can't do that. He said, I'm going to have to either have you to call I'm going to have to call a hotline. Are you trying to, do you feel like you want to kill yourself? He said, why? I said, why would I want to kill myself? He said, I saw the text that you text your children. He said, it seemed like a letter that you want to. I said, just because I text my kids that I love you and I wrote them a love poem, that don't mean I want to kill myself. I said, all I need for you all to do is just vacate my home. So before he could leave, I had to call the hotline to talk to somebody to let them know I didn't want to kill myself before any of them would remove themselves from my home. So when he left, I had to make sure I go to the hospital so they can figure out, why my blood pressure was high. I didn't want to go to the hospital because I knew they were going to keep me. But I ended up going to the hospital anyway, which, yeah, they did keep me because my blood pressure was up. It was up too high. In order for me to leave, I had to let it come down, at least out of the 200s. Which when I left the hospital, it was still 2-something, but they allowed me to leave. It was 200 over something, but they got the bottom number down to like 100 and something. So they said, man, we're going to let you go, but they gave me some kind of, they gave me a shot, and then they gave me some pills. But guys, I just want to say this. We judge too much. We as humans, we judge too much. And the Bible said, thou shalt not judge. The only person that will be able to judge us is God. We go through so much and we put so much on ourselves, worried about other people. We got to stop judging and stop being so judgmental. And we got to start worrying about our own life, because being judgmental and thinking and worrying about other people, we're going to take our own stuff out of this world. My thing is, if you were so worried about other people, yourself the way you worry about other people and in other people's business, you'll be a better person. That's the moral of my story. Stop being so judgmental. And the way you worry about other people's lives and stay in other people's business, make it your business to stay in your own business and worry about you. That's what I'm trying to say. On that note, Miss Purple is out of here. I just want to say, take care, stay sweet, and God bless. And like I always say, a beautiful smile and a kind word goes a very long way, because you never know what a person's going through that day. On that note, I just want to say, I am dropping the mic. Peace, love, hugs, and oh yes, baby. Kisses from me to you. Take care, stay sweet, and oh yes, baby. God bless. Mwah.